I hurried down the alley and around the corner, desperate to avoid my ex-lover. But a few streets later, I slowed, took a few deep breaths, and stopped. "Cowards run from their enemies," my father used to say. "The brave face them." I gathered my wits and chose my ground. The first step up a covered staircase in a back street. As footsteps over cobblestones signaled his approach, I crossed my arms and raised my chin. "Robynne," Daniel murmured, his voice not quite steady. Good, because neither was mine. Still, I raised an eyebrow, trying to stay cool. "Daniel?" I let a heartbeat go by, then pointed at the heavy chain of office around his shoulders. Or should I say, sheriff? His expression went hard. "Acting sheriff." If his words were text in an illuminated manuscript, acting would be big, bold, and surrounded by a dozen intricate figures. He'd said it before, but it didn't really register. Now it finally hit me. Acting sheriff, since when? Since this week. My gut flipped and my cheeks burned. Oh. I sounded as lame as I felt. Still, I stood firm, glad for the step that put me on eye level with Daniel. Dragons might be high and mighty, but foxes were quick and clever. Proud, too. Maybe too proud sometimes. He leaned closer, making my heart race. "You know what they say. Don't believe everything you hear about the sheriff." I had to give him that, but I couldn't resist a little challenge. "Don't believe everything you hear about outlaws." He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "If there's one thing I learned in the Crusades, it's not to believe what you've been told. About the enemy, about your own righteousness, about the way things should be." I wanted to ask about those years he'd been away, but I didn't have the nerve. What had he endured? Who had he met? What had he done? "Right. Outlaws. Including you." Daniel looked so sorrowful, I was almost ashamed. "How, Robynne? Why?" How did I end up a fugitive from the law, living in a forest with a bunch of common thieves? I often asked myself the same question. I shrugged. Long story. One I wasn't about to share, which gutted me, because there'd been a time when we'd shared everything. Then I stuck up my chin, because I wore defiance better than regret. I can assure you my only crime was standing up for myself. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And yet you roam the forest. You steal—" I cut him off. Robert stole. I gave it back. Again the eyebrow, a tiny gesture that would have a dozen women swooning, though I was immune, or at least good at pretending. "Gave back how?" "From what I remember, the coins weren't stolen from a fountain." "You know what I mean." He leaned a little closer, and his voice went all gravelly. "Why don't you explain, then?" I stuck a finger at his chest. Big mistake, because the contact sent little zings through my body. God, I was in trouble.